everyone, welcome back to another video. If you're new to my channel, I just went on a 4-week trip to Kansas, taking my 2 Mustang mares with me. Thanks to our friends, the Hallbleibs, I was able to spend multiple weeks with them training my girls and getting to have lots of fun experiences. If you want to see our adventures, check out my last video. This video is a Pallene update, my 4-year-old mare that I've had for a little over a month. This was her first big trip to another place, and I'm really proud of how she handled it. On our second day, I took her to the round pen for the first time in the evening, just to let her explore and check out everything. She was a little bit tense, but didn't spook at anything, and really made a lot of progress throughout our session. To start with, she was just really looky, but by the end she was so much more relaxed. You can tell she was just kind of walking around trying to sniff everything and look around. And here I just kind of let her stand there while I pet her and rubbed some itchy spots. Like I said, I'm just letting her check out everything and get used to her new surroundings. She gave me a really nice change of direction here. And she did start pawing a little bit, which is a sign of stress, but I want to help her relax, so I just asked her to back up really softly until she started thinking and relaxing. Here I asked her to trot for the first time, and I was adding a little bit of energy just because she was kind of distracted, but she gave me a pretty nice trot there. And I asked her to go again the other way. And I know I didn't really set her up for the pole good, but that's okay. And I just asked her to go again after that. I'm really happy with her continuing to trot without being too worried. So I asked for a hindquarter yield and gave her a little release. Since she had already improved a lot, I decided to try some liberty, which she did really amazing at. First, I just backed up and asked her to follow. And after that, I tried some liberty circles as well, which she did really well considering being her first time in this new environment. I am so happy with that, and after doing a few pole releases to ask her to relax, I ended the session there. She did pretty good going back and forth from the pens. This was our next session. I worked on trotting in hand. I hadn't done that much and she had struggled with it some, so this was some really good progress. And I don't have many videos from this session, but just did a little bit of liberty as well. So the next session was pretty exciting. I decided to saddle her for the first time. I had already put the bareback pad on her and sat on her at home, but I hadn't been able to saddle her yet because she had a limp for a little while. Thankfully, she finally got better, and on this day, I was able to saddle her for the first time. I started out just asking her to walk and change directions, which she was good with. She didn't seem super bothered by it, which I was really happy about. I finally asked her to trot, and she went into it really nicely, and also wasn't super nervous and sluggish, so I was very happy with how good she moved out. Sometimes she tries to break to the walk with something new, but she didn't until I asked, so I was very happy with that. Then I asked her to trot the other way, which she was a little more stuck, but still went into it pretty good. Again, still super happy that she didn't try to break into the walk. She was doing so good that this is when I made a bad decision. So since she was doing so good, I expected it to be fine, but I really hadn't been able to do a lot of cantering with her yet, so she wasn't super advanced with it. The few times I'd done it, she was good, but she didn't have a saddle on. And when I started asking her to canter, she was just really stuck in the trot. And I was 100% just smacking the ground here, not touching her at all, but I am trying to add a lot of energy to get her to canter, and she was just totally in her head and not feeling like she could move out at all. So this is when I discovered she has a little bit of a bad habit already. If you followed Pallene's journey from the very beginning, you'll know that we found out that she had been in a prison training program and was then put back up for adoption without them saying anything. And this is my fault because I unknowingly missed a big hole in her training. But I discovered that Pallene actually has a learned kicking issue. I had never worked on moving off pressure because I had never needed to touch her. But it's actually, of course, extremely important for them to learn. On this day, when she was feeling very stuck, I learned for the first time that Miss Pallene has quite the kicking issue. I'm still not even touching her, but it's clear that unfortunately she has learned to have a certain response to the whip. I don't love the moments like this, but I feel it's important to show the hard side to training horses because they might pick up some bad habits along the way. You might have noticed I decided to take the saddle off to try to help her feel like she wasn't being held back. It didn't help a whole lot, but she finally gave me a tiny try right here, and that's enough. I decided to let her have her release. I think it's very important to see that she wasn't trying to be bad or get away with something. She was just struggling and felt like she couldn't move forward. My mindset is not to keep her from winning, but to find a good try to end on. Sure enough, we started out much better the next day. She previously just felt very stuck, and the following day, she moved out much better. You can see her doing walk and trot transitions perfectly to the tiniest cues here. We worked on soft transitions for quite a bit before I finally asked her to canter. This day I used a plastic bag instead of the whip because I want to find a way to add a lot of energy without having to smack the whip at her. She needs to learn how to respond to the whip, but this way I can get her cantering first, which is what we were struggling with. You can tell she was still a little reluctant, but then got several good strides there, and it was just that she was feeling stuck the day before and was already much better this morning. Here she did try kicking out at it, but not too bad, and we still got a bunch of strides afterwards. I wanted to get her cantering one more time without any kicking, and she still has a little habit of turning her butt in, but she didn't actually kick, so we ended there. In our next session, we actually put the Western saddle on her for the first time. And thank you to Miriam for letting me use her saddle. Here she was getting ready to put it up on her and swinging it up there to start with. She was pretty curious but didn't seem bothered by it. Did really good with the swinging. And finally put it up there. Can we just take a moment to appreciate Miriam's gorgeous saddle? Like with the English saddle, I just asked her to walk a few circles first. I asked for a little yield here. And finally asked her to trot. You can tell she was a little unsure of the bouncing to start with, but not too bad. And just a little alarmed by the feeling of it up there. It definitely moves a lot more than the English saddle. Here she's already going much nicer. I'm always so proud of how fast she gets comfortable with things. After a little bit of nervousness, she's just fine with it. The saddle didn't fit her too great with that saddle pad, but a different day later on, I used my saddle pad and it fit much better. She actually did really good with the way it bounced, though. She was trotting around really nice and relaxed. I still decided not to ask her to canter after the previous time I saddled her, but we would do that later on. After having her move out some, I decided to practice just kind of bouncing and putting some weight in the stirrup, which she was not fazed by at all, and I started kind of putting my leg in it and putting my weight in for a second. She was just kind of wanting to fall asleep. Did some flexing as well. She was just such a sweetheart the whole time. And what you do on one side, you always do on the other. So here I'm putting my weight on this side as well. This was my first time actually standing in the stirrup and staying there for a little bit. And I asked her to flex, which she did really softly. I also want to get her used to me touching and petting her behind and in front of the saddle, which, again, she's not fazed by many things like that. And she was very good, so I went ahead and took the saddle off and ended the session there. Very happy with how she did with the first Western saddle.
Let me see, don't walk off and speak and
Well, thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for more upcoming videos. Bye!